take a pic of you guys. Do some selfies. Oh, damn, this is happening. You know what will happen? This will be a super candid conversation about exits. The whole idea is, we read about exits on TechCrunch, on all kind of media, and you think these are dramatically successful exits, everything went as per planned, and everyone's so much better off after the exit, and it's just a fairy tale come to life. But you never really know what's behind the scenes, what's happening, how messy it is sometimes. So that's what we want to have for this session. Have a very candid conversation, what happens during exits, what happens after exits, what's happening in your brain, in your emotions, how do you handle it, how does the team handle it, and also some practical tips. So without further ado, let's introduce the panelists. How about you give a short intro about yourselves and start off with a quick note on what surprised you the most that you thought was one thing going into exit, but you realized after an exit, oh, that's how it is.
Who starts? Okay, I can start. Well, in the backstage, actually, Raimonds said that we have 40 minutes for an introduction. So I'll start. So my name is Egija Gailuma, and right now I'm actually a co-founder of a new energy startup, a small ad, ENGYcell. But my exit is from a Tesla car sharing company, Oxdrive. And if you ask me what surprised me the most is how long does it take and how many arguments and conflicts may be involved in such a simple kind of like thing as an exit.
Yeah, I can relate to that, and let me introduce myself as well. I have built my business in Latvia for 5 years in property technology and mobility later. So after those 5 years, I also came to the phase when it was time to exit, and I had an opportunity to exit, and it was an emotional process. I didn't expect it to be that personal, but I think it's a good chance to also remind yourself that you have to kind of separate yourself from emotions. And I went through all of those months with emotions, but I learned to separate myself, and I had a great team with me, and I think that was my support system that I didn't expect to have. And I had like different advisors, different founders, and those were the people that were supporting me throughout the process, but I didn't expect that to be that long and that complicated in a way. Yeah.
So my name is Sebastian. I'm managing partner with Acton Capital. It's a venture capital fund based out of Munich, Germany. So we are not starting our own company, but we invest in companies that eventually being sold. That's where we make our money from, and that was a promise to our investors. And we invest in Series A, B stages. It's a bit later stage. And what comes surprising in terms of exits, one big surprise is that sometimes it comes out of the blue where you would never expect it to come. We invested in a company called Klaus in Tallinn, which some of you may know, and actually a year later we sold it already. So the journey had just begun and it already ended because they got a really nice offer from, in that case, Zendesk. They could not refuse. So sometimes you may do a lot of planning towards an exit, but it just comes out of the blue.
Fantastic. So I'll do the same. I'll do a very, very quick intro. So my name is Raimonds, 3 times founder, 1 early exit. It was a gut-wrenching 6-month experience. I didn't, I kind of knew what was going to happen, but emotionally still it was a big, big toll on me. It's a long cycle till today. What I was going through then, I didn't realize that actually I would be running right now BADideas.fund, which is investing in ambitious founders and helping with the same journey and leading up to exits. In fact, this month we are launching the 22 million fund to double down on our investing, and as well as we have the first exit from the 2 years of operations where where one of our portfolio companies exited. To your point, it did seem like it came out of nowhere. But let's focus on the human element first, and Annija, you mentioned that you were going through all kinds of emotions. Can you walk us through what was that? What made it so hard?
I think it's just because you have built something for so long time and you feel like you can kind of associate yourself as a business and you become business in a way. And it doesn't feel real. The conversations about exit, they don't feel real until the moment is there and you see that paper, you understand that in a way you're closing those doors for yourself and that business is no longer yours or you're selling your shares. Again, there are so many different types of exits. There are mergers, acquisitions, there are IPOs. Yeah, my exit was I sold my shares to the investor and I understood that by signing this contract, that my days are over in this company, and at that point it becomes emotional, and you get this emotional ties to existing entity. And like you, Raimonds, said that you didn't expect yourself to sit here with investment fund after your exit because it feels like your whole life at that point. And it has this beautiful, like, it comes with some financial freedom and with some opportunities, but it also is emotional because that's all you know or you have built for a few years. So I think that's what I faced, and I also didn't see through it, and that also what caused so many emotions because I didn't know what necessarily is the next thing right away. But as the time goes, and if you're ambitious, if you're an entrepreneur, you'll find a way. There will be other ventures, and you will exchange your experience for building that venture into a new venture, and that will maybe be even bigger exit, and that's how it should be, right? So you keep on building even bigger and bigger exits in bigger companies.
Fascinating. You essentially left a company and it still exists, still working with the same team. I suppose in the process leading up to signing the dotted line, there was a bit of confidentiality period, uncertainty period, but you mentioned you had a supporting team. At some point you probably felt quite lonely, or did you, like, could you reveal all of the things you're negotiating with the team? Or how did that process go?
No, of course not. We have some terms and conditions, and there are some things that we have discussed internally that we don't express out. But I don't think we have secrets. It's all fairly be publicly communicated, the process and the exit, and I love to share that the company still exists and it even gets to new heights today. So I'm very happy about the team we built for all the years together, and I'm really happy to see my co-founder still thriving and growing the business. So I feel good about my move and the step and decision I made, because I still see my investments in the business that they still keep on growing and thriving, and that makes me happy. And I have moved on. I have different ventures I'm working on, so I keep myself busy with building something new now.
Okay, so my summary of that is you identified yourself with the company pretty much because you put your sweat and soul into building it up, and now that you exit, you need to essentially rebuild from scratch that kind of identity, detach it forcefully. Okay, so was it the same for you, Egija? How was that?
Oh yeah.
And tell a bit background of what actually happened.
Yeah, well, I think that during the process we laughed that we are going through several.
So first off, you were building a fleet of Teslas. What was the business?
Okay, so we start with the very beginning. Okay, so we had Oxdrive, which was Tesla car sharing. We had an app through which you could rent a Tesla the same way as you rent any car sharing car, from City, Bolt Drive, and others. And in the end, we had around 150 Teslas. Not only Teslas, we also had Audi e-trons, and then we had, Porsche Taycans and ID Buzz, as for example, during summer. So that was business all about, as I previously spoke to Annija, that car sharing as such is actually business that consists of two things, operations and marketing. That's all it is behind car sharing. So when we got to this point that, we will have an exit, which is kind of like something mixed. As Annija explained, exit doesn't always mean acquisition. So for us, it was something like merger plus acquisition, like a mix, basically. And when we went through this whole process, which took for us almost like 8 months, something like that, then for several times, each of us, we are 4 founders, went through 5 stages of grief. Like, for several times. There is a moment when you are mad, and then there is, anger, and then this is satisfaction, and then you feel again, no, it's all fine. There were moments where we thought like, can we still kind of, turn back all of this and actually keep the business and do something about it? So we really, really had discussions where we sat down and like, okay, I know we are now this far and it kind of feels like no way back, but we had ideas how we could change things and maybe, shake this all up and actually stop the process and still keep the business. So we had different, thoughts. And so it wasn't an easy process, definitely, because I agree fully with Annija. I was definitely, I also do a lot of social media in a sense, I post a lot on Instagram. So I definitely built my brand around the business brand. So I was literally known as Egija. Is that the Oxdrive girl, So it was literally me. I was the brand. And then I had some, almost like panic that what I'm going to do, what I'm going to show on Instagram, how will people even kind of, keep following me? And those were funny thoughts, but still kind of those are running through your mind. But then you after the exit, you actually understand that you're something more than just a company, and you start a new venture, you start something new, so you build it up again, almost not from zero, but basically you just switched it a little bit,
That's so true. For me, it was the same kind of experience of identifying with the business. So it's probably natural. It seems like your baby. You're putting so much soul into it. But at the end of the day, if things go well, you feel like you're doing great. If things go bad, you feel like shit. And you're basically a slave to a company, which is not a baby. You are going to build all kinds of businesses and things, accomplishments. You can't really make it an extension of yourself. But Sebastian, have you seen something similar of a pattern? You probably have seen more than one exit in your investing career. What's been the highlights there?
Fortunately, we have seen more than one exit. I mean, we've been doing this for 25 years, so many exits. First of all, I think it's super important to recognize exit not equal exit. So there's so many different forms, from IPO to majority takeover of a private equity fund to, of course, then a trade sale to a strategic. And it's important for the entrepreneurs, I think, to think about what could be a feasible exit path. Like, are you ready to step back and buy and sell to a strategic, where most likely the organization stays intact for some time, but after 2-3 years maybe, it will be absorbed by the business and it will be totally different? Or do you want to continue the story just with a new owner, allowing you to take some money off the table, but basically keep the company intact, and maybe it's a private equity that's going to take over and help you to again double, triple the business over the next 5 to 6, 10 years, and you may actually keep the company running yourself, or even an IPO. And I think it's super important to understand those. Having said that, we had experience as well where we sold a company to Amazon, for example, and the CEO actually stayed aboard for another 6 years running the company. And Amazon was intelligent enough to keep the company as a startup within the big organization. So he had the possibility to really continue building what he built, and the company kept on striving. So that as well is a question you need to ask yourself, like, what sort of company would you want to sell to? Is it that you sell to and then after a year you leave and it's fine and you get rid of your baby? Or do you feel that there's actually something you can do together? Because the synergies, of course, with a strategic partner could be amazing in terms of sales, marketing, whatsoever. So I think there's many different aspects to an exit that you should be just aware of. And maybe it's not only about you as an entrepreneur, it's about the full company. I mean, there are people on board that partially came to the company because you inspired them. And for them, it's a huge change as well. So of course, keep in mind, the whole company is going to change. The culture is going to change. What does it mean for all the people that helped you building that company as well? Like, who could be a good owner for the next steps for them as well? Obviously, a strategic buyer very often changes quite a lot the structure.
Sebastian, so what we're making a point about is that there are different kinds of exits, and each are driven by external, by internal as well as needs. Let's focus on the internal part first. In some cases, you have these surprise offers, and you better take that deal. But in other cases, well, the saying goes, startups fail not because they run out of money, but because the founders run out of energy. Is that something that you've seen as well?
That happens, especially if companies take very long and they stop growing and they sort of go sideways and people get frustrated because the big vision doesn't materialize. That is true, but sometimes you get exit out of the blue, they just come, but typically it takes a longer period of time. And typically you start during your journey talking to potential takeover candidates. Like many strategic exits happen because companies being sold by customers or people being in the same segment. So within your journey, you're going to talk to many of those people, get closer, get to know them, or you should be talking to a group of like private equity funds where you feel like they could at some point of time become interested. So exit preparation starts, so to say, early on. You need to be clear what you want to achieve, what you want to do, and then work towards it. You can't force it, and you should not force it. There's a saying, good company is not being sold but bought. So of course, focus on building a great company, and then if you have a great company, the exit will come. But it's always good to keep in mind that there are certain places you may keep in touch, keep them updated. If there's an event, you may meet with them, have a coffee, so that you build up trust to them. That so if it comes to an exit, you're not starting from scratch, but you already have sort of a set of potential people you talk to, which then helps, of course, to create competition as well.
On the emotions, though, you probably have, like, founders turn to their investors not just for money or practical advice, but also to rant about their emotions. What kind of emotions come through founders' head when they are every stage of the process doing an exit? Is the same thing that Egija was mentioning, all stages of grief and...
It is pretty much the same. Actually, there's a lot of emotions at the investor as well. Like in the Klaus example, I hated them seeing them go. It was a great team. It was great fun working with them. We just started a journey. Then, of course, it was a good exit, but I would love to continue working with them. So you as an investor, you identify as well with the company. But on the founder side, I mean, it's an up and down. It's a long process. As you say, typically it takes, I would say, 4 to 6 months, and maybe even longer, depending on who acquires you, depending on how savvy they are in acquiring company. And it's emotional up and down all the time. Like initially, typically there's this like enthusiasm, like, wow, there's somebody coming and he's interested in my company. Then you see hopefully a big number showing up on the term sheet and you're like, that's amazing. And then you go into more details and think about how this is going to go. And you see all the terms in the term sheet and in the contracts. And then there's very often this like, is this really the right thing to do? Like what I'm getting into here now? And then of course you get discussion with your employees and you feel like, now I'm really ready to get rid of that company. And at some point of time, and hopefully eventually, you actually start changing the side and you start seeing your company from the eyes of the acquirer and you start making plans together on like, what could we do together? And if that happens, that's the best moment because then you feel like it's not them acquiring us, but it's us doing something together. But I can only encourage you, do the diligence on the potential acquirers. You need to be sure this is a company, if it's a strategic sale, but as well, of course, if it's a PE fund, this is a company, these are people I can envision myself and the company working with in the future. There has to be a fit. Strategic, of course, you may leave after some time, but especially if it's a PE takeover, it's another marriage, like with the VC coming in. You need to be sure they will support you the way you want to build a business.
And the team, how about the team aspect? You're going through all these emotions. At the certain stages of the exit, you don't know if it's going to happen. It seems it's going to happen. Then due diligence starts. The investor starts kicking the tires and seeing what's wrong. And then there's pauses. That's at least what I was experiencing. I have a background in corporate finance, so I knew to expect. But still, there was, as a solo founder, it was quite a challenge. For 6 months, essentially, maybe like the 6 months was the process for my exit, but 4 months I had to keep it to myself because I never know if it's going to be a short exit or I need to have the optionality open. We keep going for another year or something and then resume. But to that moment, you have to keep a smiling face high energy and that with the team, and things go as normal. But at the same time, you can't really plan strategic stuff ahead while the process is going, because there is this one scenario where it eliminates other scenarios, right? Like thinking how you're going to grow next year. How did you deal with team? Did you need to isolate them for a while? How were you able to? How did you manage?
Well, for us, it was that we actually gathered a really nice team, people who are not just following your orders, but are actually, you know, always opposing to you if they think something is wrong. So we also had to be quiet and we couldn't say anything. But at the same time, for example, for the business, we needed to take different decisions that otherwise, if we would keep growing as an independent company, we would not take those decisions. So what happened is that we say, hey, now we will do X, Y, and Z. And our team was opposing to it. And they were like furious, like, no, this doesn't make any sense. What the fuck? It's like, no, it doesn't make any sense. I will not do this. Like, no. And I understand they're fighting actually for the business, because it really doesn't make sense if you don't know what is happening in the background. But we couldn't let them know. So we had to be very smart how to, you know, in a way even manipulate so that they would finally accept it. And even if it's like, oh, fine, but they would actually agree with us, right? So that was the hardest part, you know, that they were really opposing. And then the next hardest part was when you actually needed to tell them. And then we gathered them all, you know, almost like this, where it was not a stage, but basically all of them were there. And then I gave a speech, and of course I couldn't really tell it, so I was giving this pre-speech, and I see their faces that they're all sad because they understand something is coming and something bad is coming. And then I said that, yeah, well, we are selling the company, and soon the new owner is coming in, and they get really sad, like really sad. And then after, you know, most of them got sad because they said they don't want to work with the new owner, and some of them got sad because they were afraid what's going to happen with my place, with my position. Will I get fired? Will I still have a job? So those were two emotions for them that we needed to manage and actually, you know, make sure whether they will actually have a job or not. And for those that we knew who will not be kept, I actually took, you know, a responsibility and I was trying to find them another job, and I did. For some of them really who understood that they will no longer be here. So for them, I really found a new job, and even asked, like, you know, other founders and said, hey, I have these cool guys, and you know that maybe you need some. And for those who I knew that are staying, then for them it was more like, you know, this psychology talk about whether they want to stay themselves in the new company or not.
So essentially, you're breaking up a team, and they're entering a new team, and some are leaving. Lots of change to manage.
Yeah, many also left and said that, hey, I'm leaving and I want to join you all, you know, as founders. Whatever you will do, we are coming with you. And at the beginning, we were like, cool, but we don't really have anywhere where to take you on. But afterwards, we actually started, you know, taking those people on as they wanted, just as I think you said that, yeah, that teams very often, they are in the company because of the founders, because they believe in you, because they like you, instead of just the business as such.
We'll get back to the practical question of this. Annija, any comments on the team aspect?
In my case, it was different because I didn't sell the company to some foreign entity. It still operated in the same way with the people that were in the team. So my co-founder is continuing the business. So in my case, we didn't have tremendous and bad news, and yeah, it was.
So you had a breakup speech.
Yeah, in a way, yes.
Or was it the text?
It's always like a relationship, you know. It's tough to go.
Okay. Talking about a team, when you do have to, in more typical cases than not, if it's a bigger competitor acquiring or private equity acquiring, they do care about the team staying for the ride, right? With a new owner, a new investor. Egija, how did you? Was it not the case for you that the new owner really needed those people to stay, and they are saying, oh, no way, I'm going with those guys?
So it was a little bit different. So for us also, we didn't need to stay in the company, as very often when a competitor buys you out or someone else, then you need, for example, the management team to stay on. So we didn't, because it's like a direct competitor. They don't need 4 more people in the management team because they already have the management team, which is a direct competitor. So of course the management team didn't have to stay, so management team was out. And then from the people that were in the team, so we had to sign, of course, an agreement which said this non-compete, non-solicitation, so we couldn't really take them. But if they really leave, well, we cannot do anything about it. It's like I cannot make someone stay in that company. So we didn't go, and say, hey, you should leave, and then come to us. No, it didn't happen that way. So of course they took over the whole team. And for some time also, the team actually was working there, and then they voluntarily who left. There are a few people still staying who are still with the team, and they also were one of the core people. So they even, afterwards, what they did as the company that acquired, they even fired some of their guys and put our guys in their place. So they valued that some of our people are actually, more better in that position, for example. And those people stayed because they understood, they saw that they actually have, a growth there in the company possible, and they love the industry as such. So yes and no, we had rules that we cannot take them away, but of course you cannot do anything if someone wants to leave.
And Sebastian, have you seen team retention come up as a topic in negotiations?
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that's something you need to address early on. Again, depending if a PE acquires a company, typically the founding team is super important still. They may replace over time, but typically they want you to stay on board, and there will be clauses that you have to stay on board. If it's strategic, it could be both. It could be in your case like, no, we have everything you need, but we take a couple of people depending what the rationale is. Maybe they would just want a tech, or they want market access, or they may actually really slice it down. So it really depends on who acquires, but for you as a founder, typically it's been taken care of. You're part of negotiation, you probably have a large part in the company, you're getting a nice package, et cetera. But for the levels further down, early on you need to start negotiating as well for them. Because as you say, they will learn about it in a meeting and say, we're being sold, by the way. And all of a sudden they got all the questions like, what does it mean for me? So how can you carry over the incentives? They may have stock options, which may or may not be vested. How can you make sure that not only they get part of the benefit for those options, but then stay motivated to stay on board even under a new owner, because that is part of the value. So think early on about what does the company look like, and discuss it very openly with the other party. Just be very open and frank about the concerns you may have there. It's a partnership, so you need to be very, very open about all those issues.
Well, what we have established so far, it's an emotionally draining process, a roller coaster. There's so many things that's hard to predict how it will go, so you need to navigate. But Sebastian, you haven't seen quite a few exits. Can you give us an example, a practical example where the exit went terribly bad and wrong?
Actually, don't have a very terrible bad exit, but what I would like to say is that if you go in the process, typically once the train has left the station, it's very difficult to stop it. Like if people start thinking about they have this offer and there's a process running and they move towards exit, then typically the exit happens. So what I can only encourage everyone is to be very confident and define the red lines where you say no. And even if the train is already outside of the station and running at full steam, it's at the end it's your company, and if you feel like it's not the right thing to do for whatever reason during the process, just say no. Because it's very difficult. There's so many people involved, and investors, they're pushing a different interest, and you got advisors and the other side of the company, et cetera, very difficult then to pull back in a process. But I think it's important for you to be very clear what are the red lines, and then act on them.
Okay, we have one final question. Lightning round. Forward-looking advice to founders. What's one piece of exit advice that goes against conventional wisdom? Egija, do you have some advice for founders?
This is a hard one, actually. I didn't think about it. But, well, most probably what I can advise is just that, be very straightforward with the team and help them when they understand, when you know that someone will be fired, just help them find another job because they most probably are not as entrepreneurial as you are. So for them, it's way even harder in a way than for you. So that
Help
is
them
my
make the
thing,
job,
yeah. So
make a next
yeah,
landing.
take responsibility
Totally
of the
agree.
team.
Yeah, great point. Annija, what about you?
I mean, in terms of founder who is exiting, is that how you?
Yeah, whichever comes to
I
mind.
mean, I think it's important to, like, when you're negotiating the deal, is to understand, like, how to negotiate also with the other party by understanding where you have even more options or where the other side has more urgency, so you can push the terms you need and that you want yourself as well. Have more than one buyer would be something that I would strongly suggest, is just to have valuation high and always know that you have options open, negotiating beyond the price, and also understanding there are earnouts, there are some other terms that need to be negotiated. Like, especially about earnouts, there is like so many things that can be tied to your to the performance of the company, and if you don't secure a package, that you have some say or rights to impact how the company keeps to develop and grow. Your other earnout could be just go downhill. So I think it's just really, really important to be aware and be aware of all steps you need to think of throughout the process. Yeah.
Great point. Sebastian, any final point?
Yeah, don't get stressed about the exit. Build a great company, focus on building a great company. That's what entrepreneurs know doing best, and that's what you should do. And then the exit will come at some point of time, especially if you have VCs involved, because at some point of time, they will start making you think about the process. But just build a great company, and the rest will come.
Thanks. That's a good closure. Thanks, guys, for the panel.